Shalom, everybody. Today we'll start the Amidah NUSACH, and we'll start with Kedusha because it's the only thing that has a difference in terms of the repetition. Because amazingly, I checked this over and over. Modim de Rabbanan, which is also said during the repetition, is 100% the same in every nusach. So it must be a very, very early source. I believe it's mentioned in the Talmud. The question is just how it is that nobody lost even one word or even one letter from it. So, but the Kedusha does have differences, and the reason why I'm starting with that is because it actually affects the nusach for the third blessing of Atah Kadosh. And so the Ashkenazi nusach is Nekadesh et Shemcha ba'olam, Kashem shemagdishim oto b'shmemorom. So we're going to sanctify you in this world like they do sanctify you in heaven, as written by your prophet Isaiah, that the Karaz Ze'ozeh V'amar, so that the angels call to each other and say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. And so just before we research that verse, let's see Sepharad and Sephardi, which are the same. Nagdishach v'naritzach, so it's in the feminine, but that's common in a lot of prayers. Kenoam siach sotzofei kodesh, like the secret language of the Srafim, of the holy Seraphim, who have a try, repeat thrice, Kedusha kakatu alim ve'echa. So mishalachshim lecha kedusha. So that's the question: are the Seraphim, are the angels, saying three times kadosh or two? The reason I'm asking that question is because the Radak has a very interesting explanation to that verse where it says "V'karaz Amar Kadosh Kadosh Kadosh," is that each angel calls to another angel, just like I would say Moshe Moshe or Avram Avram or Yaakov Yaakov. There's a few people that are mentioned in the Torah with their name twice, and even calling somebody else. When we were kids, my mother would sometimes go through all the names until she got the right one because I'm the oldest of seven. But that's not really the point. The point is that according to Radak, each angel says Kadosh Kadosh to the other angel, meaning like I'm calling on you because you are holy, and then the two of them together, or all 10,000s of them together, say Kadosh Adonai Tzvot Melech Haaretz Kvodo. So that's his explanation, and so according to that explanation, it makes sense for the Ashkenaz to just say we are saying like they do in heaven, but according to the Sephardim and the Sfard, we say Meshalshim Lecha Kedusha, because they don't accept that explanation, but rather that the angels say three times Kadosh, 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 holy, holy, holy. And so that is basically the difference between if we say we are saying it like them. So according to Sfard and Sephardi, basically we're saying Radak is not the correct interpretation, and according to Ashkenaz, Radak is the correct interpretation, and therefore V'karaz Ze'ozeh Amar Kadosh Kadosh. So the third time, so if we go to now the third blessing, Ashkenaz, of course, is Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kedoshim B'chol Yom V'Chol. So we say once Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kedoshim B'chol Yom, and Baruch Atah Hashem El Kadosh. So we don't have to say it a third time. But the Sephard and Sephardi, we say Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh. So that's one word Kadosh, the second word Kadosh, and Ki El Melech Gadol V'Kadosh Ata, the third time Kadosh. That's why we have to add that line of the third mention of Kadosh. The other explanation is something that we talked about before, is that the Sephard and Sephardi don't mind saying that this is cause and effect, that we say because you are a holy and great king, and Ashkenaz don't accept that explanation, and so therefore they don't say Kiel Melech Gadol Kadosh Ata. So those are the two explanations for why there's a difference in the Kedusha and therefore in the third blessing. So now we'll go into the fourth blessing. And just one more difference, sorry, about the Kedusha. Ashkenaz say Lo Matam Baruch Meru, so just saying that we say Baruch because that's the first word of the verse, Baruch Kvod Hashem Komo, and Sfard and Sfaradim just say Lu Matam Meshabchim V'Omrim because the angels respond with the other verse So it's basically the vision that Isaiah had, and then the vision that Ezekiel had. So that's it for the third blessing. The fourth blessing is Ata chonen l'adam da'at u'melamed enosh bina. You are the one who, with mercy, gives man da'at and teaches enosh, which is another word for mankind, bina, understandings, that's inner understanding, and chonenu mitcha de'a bina v'askel, so give us this gracious de'a bina v'askel, and all nusachs end with Baruch Atah Hashem chonen da'at. According to Sfard and Sfaradim, is Ata chonen l'adam da'at u'melamed lerosh bina. The beginning is the same. Chokhmah bina v'dat. So chokhmah is wisdom, bina is understanding, and dat is knowledge. And so we'll research a little bit where this verse comes from and why there's a difference in saying those words. So the verse that is based on is a verse in Psalm 94. That we say on Wednesday in Shir Shayom. So verse 10 and 11, shall he who disciplines nation not punish, Hamelamed Adam Da'at, who teaches men with knowledge. So that verb again, and Adonai Yodea, next verse, Hashem knows Machshavot Adam ki hem ha'avel. Okay, because Hashem has that intimate knowledge of us and of our thoughts, that most of them are foolish or futile. So the idea of that, before we go into the actual explanation of Maharal, is, there's the first time that the word dat is mentioned in the Torah is about the tree of knowledge, etz hadat, and then as a verb, so that's meaning the tree of knowledge, so that's a noun, as far as I know in English, and afterwards, the first time that it's used as a verb is Vayeda Adam et Chava Ishto, that Adam knew his wife Chava, and it's called knowing in the biblical sense. So that's the most intimate way of knowing somebody. And we are basically asking Hashem that since he is a giver of that da'at, he is a giver of that high knowledge, because that's what it says in Psalms. It really doesn't matter if afterwards we say bina v'askel or chokhmah bina v'dat. But the explanation for the Ashkenazi custom is that because de'ah is what the verse says, and bina v'askel are all two other ways of knowledge, which are actually inferior. So de'ah is the highest level, bina, which is understanding, so what's called mevin davar mitoch davar. So if I say, I want some water, then somebody understands that it's not only that I want water, I want a glass with water, because I can't drink water, sprinkling at me or something like that. And a skill is just the wisdom to understand what's going on in the world, and it's very clear, like very, very clear. And the Chabad and the NUSACH and Sfard and Sfaradi say Chokhmah bin Avadat, because even though it is Hashem that taught us the dat, and He knows what we know, we are asking Him to give us Chokhmah, and if we are even more learned and more understanding, then Bina, and last dat. So when this person, the example that Rav Tzuriel gave us is that the person is learning the Shas or Daf Talmud. So there's words that you just understand what the words mean. Then you understand that if Rabbi Yehuda says something, it means that he understood it differently, and that is just like that light bulb that lights up in your head, and you suddenly have a deeper understanding of the passage that you're learning. And so I think that's the main reason for it. And I actually wanted to tie it to this week's Torah portion, because the word dat is mentioned so many times, but specifically about the manna, it says that Hashem gave us the manna in order to know ladat, what it is that we have, our thoughts and our feelings. And so the Hamek Davar, Rav Naftali Tzvi Berlin, writes like this, that he already explained in Bereshit that there's three kinds of tests. One is to make it better, like beating flax in order to make it softer and easier to work with. Second way is kedei ladat kocho, like hitting a pot after somebody made a pottery, to hit it slightly in order to know if it's strong enough, or is it so fragile that it will break immediately. And third, kedei la'amis masav onador. So the third way of trying us is to see if we can handle the punishment, or if we can handle the weight, and that's like a good horse. And so Ha'amek Davar explains that this nisayon, this experiment or test about the manna, was to know what is in your heart, which is like the test of the pot. So to know if you are able to keep the mitzvot that still haven't arrived. And data deinish nikba b'albeim shana, that for the 40 years that we were in the desert, that's how Hashem tested us, that he was trying to see if we are able to take the test of the manna, and basically to know if we are already strong enough to keep all the mitzvot when we come into Israel. And so that's his explanation for why the verb is specifically dat and not chokhmah or binah, because he could have said, la'avin or la'askil, and all of those are mentioned in the Tanakh in all kinds of places, but this is his explanation, that the whole idea of the manna was to know if we are ready to accept the commandments and to keep them, and that we are strong enough to do them when we are already independent in the land of Israel. So we'll end with that, and wish everybody Shabbat Shalom.